Hiya Nick, great to meet up with you and do some work on your game. Obviously the first session was a sort of fact-finding mission on my part more than anything, trying to get a feel for where you are with the game, what your sort of golfing goals are, and also obviously have a little look at the action that you're making and your understanding of the golf swing. You've obviously seemed like you've done a little bit of researching online. You seem quite comfortable with the fact that a lot of the good players now swinging around a more fixed point. It's a more logical way to swing, it's a simpler way to swing when you're playing golf a limited amount through family or work commitments like yourself. It's a much simpler approach and lower maintenance approach. So the first thing we changed at setup was the positioning of your feet. So what we've got here is both feet very, very square, maybe turned out a degree or two maximum. And the problem with that is that it positions the knees inwards. And when the knees are positioned inwards, the hips aren't really free enough to turn properly. So what happens now is during the backswing, the lead legs, a little bit quick, excuse me, try that one again. During the backswing, the lead leg tends to overflex. The hips start to do some funny things. You can see the hips sort of swaying away from the target. And that subsequently makes the downswing relatively difficult to sort of control. What we see with a better player is the feet are flared out more. I'd prescribe for yourself at the moment a minimum of 20 degrees. This repositions the knees. The knees are turned out, maybe not quite as much as the feet, but certainly turned out a little bit. And this now frees up the hip sockets, allowing the hips to turn in a stable manner. So as the hips turn now, the left knee action is different. The hips are turning on a tilted angle in a very stable manner. When we look at your swing, we've now, sort of quite early in the session really, we've turned both feet out 20 degrees. That's the only change we've made at this stage. And ask you to hit some shots forward. So with the feet turned out, we can see now a much more stable move during the backswing. The hips haven't swayed away from the target anywhere near as much. The left knee is in a much more appropriate condition. Rather than moving in behind the golf ball, it's moved in a little bit, but it's also flexed towards the camera, allowing you to make a turn around a stable axis. So we're turning the shoulders and the hips on a tilted angle around a stable axis. It's also allowing you to propel the left arm a little bit further during the backswing, which is great. That's what we want to try and achieve. And we're starting to look a little bit more similar to our model swing up on the top right. If we now look at what happens through the hip, with a good player, the hips are moving forward, the weight's moving forward, the hands are sort of in line with the right thigh when the shaft is parallel to the ground. The handle is leading the club head into the hip, and then the arms are very straight on the through swing. With yourself now during the downswing, we see that the wrists uncock a little bit too fast. That's a sign that the downswing is being initiated with the arms rather than with the lower body. So you've got the angles getting dumped a little bit. That's widening the radius of the swing. We can see that the lower body is not really moving forward aggressively enough. Therefore, the hands are outside the right thigh when the shaft is parallel with the ground, making hitting the ground behind the ball a distinct possibility. To prevent that happening, golfers do a number of things. They flex the elbows and they also gain height. A little line across the top there. As you come through the hip, occasionally you flex the elbows. Pretty much every swing you gain a little bit of height on the way through. So what we noticed with the better player through the hip, with you and him, is his hips have moved forward more during the downswing. So what we're trying to do to encourage this to happen is just introduce it to start with. I'm shadowing you at the back here. The drill that I want you to do is where we make little swings, we set up as normal, we push the handle and the hips way forward. So you can see the position I'm going from there at the back is very, very similar. It's actually a souped up version of what we see with these good players at impact. So we're pre-setting a good impact, and a good impact for you now is the relevant pieces are that the hips are pushed forward, that the handle is forward, and that relationship is maintained through the hip. So don't be frightened of overdoing the drill. I want you to look more like I look behind you when you're doing that exercise. So you've pushed the hips and the chest forward. I just want you pushing the hips forward. I'm just going to take that back again for you to the start. Normal setup. Once you've taken your normal setup, push the handle and the hips forward. Really emphasising the key pieces of a good impact position. And then from there, all we're going to do is make some little swings. They don't need to be big swings at this stage. Where we're just trying to sort of maintain that relationship throughout the space of the swing. So little swings back. Maintaining that relationship through the hip. And you can see now how much different the hips look. With myself compared to yourself. So I've got the handle more forward. You can see that the handle's higher than the club head. And I've got the hips more forward through the hip. And the reason I've got the hips more forward through the hip is because they were more forward at setup. So if we were to do a spectrum there, our friend here in the middle, or on the top right, would fit right in the middle of where we are there. So we need more emphasis on the way we do the drill. We've got to become better at doing the drill. Take your normal setup, hips and handle forward, and then maintain that position throughout the swing. Getting rid of the flex in the pelvis and the flex in the knees and the flex in the spine. Stuff we can develop as we go, but have a little bit of fun with that drill during your practice sessions over the coming week. What I did like was that if we go back to the top of the backswing here, what a super place to start your golfing sort of journey from that. That's absolutely fantastic. Great top of the backswing position. Took very little work to get you there. We'll spend a little bit more time in subsequent sessions working down the line on controlling the curve of the golf ball, etc. But for now, great work on improving the backswing. A little bit of work on what's going on through impact. Like I say, have a little bit of fun with it when you practice. But all in all, looks really good. Well done. Look forward to working with you again in about 3 weeks' time.